Hi, Bother Brigade. Here's what's bothering me today. We just got yet another terrible ruling from the U.S. Supreme Court today that basically gives Border Patrol free license to beat up people, and there's no real recourse for their victims. In a 6-3 vote, the Supreme Court ruled that border agents may unconstitutionally enter a person's home without a warrant and assault him, and federal courts are powerless to do anything about it. The border, once again, is a constitution-free zone. Oh, and by the way, Border Patrol, while they can operate in a variety of areas throughout the country, including at, airports and terminals and things like that, generally speaking, their main mandate is only within the 100-mile radius of whatever their borders are. So in that case, just the southern border, as they call it, and then the Canada-US border. So let's take a look at some of the cities that might be along these borders and why this would be really problematic. So off the bat, this map is definitely inaccurate. They're showing even cities along the coast, which I'm pretty sure is not how it works for Border Patrol. If it does, that's even more horrifying. But anyway, this ruling came out of a court case that came from Blaine, Washington State. So we're looking at Olympia, Tacoma, Seattle, Spokane, Kalispell, Havre, Minot, Grand Forks, Bemidji, Wausau, Sault Ste. Marie. Not sure if Green Bay, Milwaukee, and Madison and Chicago all count. I know Detroit definitely counts. Buffalo definitely counts. Rochester, Ithaca, Syracuse, Burlington, Vermont. And then on the southern border, you got stuff like Los Angeles, San Bernardino, San Diego, Yuma, Tucson, Douglas, Alamogordo, El Paso, Laredo, Brownsville, and Corpus Christi looks like the final end of it. Again, the area around the Great Lakes is a little unclear. I know Detroit, it definitely would be. But either way, right, even if it's just along the key main north-south border points, there's still some rather large population centers with millions of people living in those regions, meaning that the Border Patrol, given this ruling, could just walk into their place and violate their rights. And the Supreme Court said, yeah, that checks out. This is just so supremely disturbing and concerning when all of a sudden the Supreme Court basically says, oh, you know what? It's actually totally fine for Border Patrol to just violate someone's rights and property if they so happen to be within the 100-mile border enforcement zone that falls within their mandate. That is just a little, a smidge dystopian, wouldn't you agree? And yet, here we are having to deal with this in 2022. So again, like I said, that map seems a little inaccurate with, everything along the coast, but there are still some major population centers and very populous, densely packed areas along both the Canada-US border and the US-Mexico border. And what the Supreme Court has just now done puts all these people, Americans, by the way, at incredible risk of extreme police brutality, basically. They said that they don't need a warrant, and apparently federal court protections won't actually help. And trust me, links will be in the description down below. So while this is definitely aimed at migrants and those who protect them, right? Because what I and many others have not mentioned about this story, because the focus is understandably on how dystopian it is. The core of this story comes from the ruling of, I think it's Egbert versus Buell. And it's unfortunate because the owner in question owns an inn called Smuggler's Inn, or the Smuggler's Den Inn. It's on 99th Avenue or 99th Street. And it's in the town of Blaine, Washington State. And it's basically literally a stone's throw from the Canada border. In fact, he even put a line of stones on his line of the property that actually falls along the border. So Border Patrol basically got it in their heads that this man was basically actually just blatantly running a smuggling operation. And when he refused to rat on his guests, because, hey, these are my guests, confidentiality agreements, hello, they decided that's it. And so they basically started assaulting him and destroying his own property because, the border and security next to Canada, right? So, anyway, that is what spawned this. And unfortunately, the Supreme Court has decided that the person who was assaulted without a warrant and had his own property damaged is not entitled to coverage or protection under, I think, what's called the Bivens ruling. That's a whole separate different thing. But basically, because the Supreme Court said, oh, that doesn't really apply here, that now means that this man has no recourse to address the very real harm that was done to him by Border Patrol without a warrant, and he has a bunch of property damage that he now has to pay for and clean up, even though it wasn't his fault. Now, again, with the 100-mile radius in question, apply that to some very large cities and metropolitan regions of both the Canada-US border and the US-Mexico border, and what that means for a new level of police brutality that we haven't seen yet. And worst of all, there's not going to be any kind of federally protected recourse available to people who will be assaulted by these jackasses. It's just free reign for police brutality so long as it's done by Border Patrol within a 100-mile radius of the border. It's absolutely horrifying and dystopian, and unfortunately, I feel like they're only just getting started, and that's what's bothering me today.